Hey everyone, I'm Gary Wilmot, the CEO of High Five, and with me today I've got Geoff Noble, who is the co-owner of Colombo Coffee. Colombo Coffee is situated in Durban and has a history dating back to 1917. They have over 12 staff and serve over 200 cups of coffee a day. So Colombo is also a wholesale coffee business which sells coffee to coffee shops, hotels, B&Bs and corporates. So yeah, Geoff, I don't know if you want to maybe kick off and tell us more about the company and your background and how you got into the position and role
Sure,
within
Gary.
Colombo Coffee.
I'll start with my background. I'm probably the most least qualified coffee person in the world. I'm a chartered accountant and also a CFA charter holder, so I'm very corporate by definition. But I have somehow found myself involved in coffee, and it's a number of things I do. And I mean, we were chatting earlier before this, and I suppose when I went to university, I was going to be a chartered accountant, maybe to go do a bit of auditing and all that, and then somehow I lost my way along the way. I still obviously ended up doing the chartered accounting thing, but with a slight twist. I ended up in Australia for 4 years, and maybe that's where the seeds of coffee were sown. But I didn't end up doing auditing. I did corporate finance, and then I came back and ended up managing money in an asset management environment. And then, got more involved in technology. But the gist of it is I ended up deciding to leave the corporate world about 2 years ago, but not sort of abandoning ways of thinking or anything like that. I believe in one, obviously, I mean, everyone says that doing things you're passionate about, and coffee is one of those. But I believe in creating different income streams, and that's sort of how I got involved in the coffee industry. So I do consulting on the side, but I've got various business interests that I've tried to set up over the last couple of years, and the latest one is Colombo Coffee. So that's pretty much my background. I'm a finance person. I do love coffee. Maybe I wasn't quite kind enough to myself. I know a little bit more about coffee than the average person. I also got other coffee interests in importing beans and so forth. So I find it quite exciting, and it's a lot of hard work, but very different to the corporate world I was exposed to up until 2 years ago.
And tell me, what's your favorite coffee right now? That your preferred cup?
Well, I mean, in terms of how we make, in terms of brew style, I usually drink a pour-over coffee. I normally either drink a V60 Hario, which is basically a manual filter coffee, or I actually like plunger coffee. I'll have a flat white or a cappuccino from time to time, but I'm not big on the milk. The milk gets a bit much for me. In terms of actual coffee drinking, I'm drinking a coffee from Rwanda at the moment. It's a Gitari. It's a very nice bean that a friend of mine bought in. But the nice thing about coffee is that you can mix it up, and it's a little bit like wine. You can drink wines from all. I mean, I don't drink wine, but people tell me you can drink wines from all over the world, and different vintages, different crops, and it's very similar to coffee like that. And there's some people that will tell you that coffee flavors are as complex as wine, if not more.
Yeah.
It's a hell of an interesting industry. It's a tough industry, but especially we in the Colombo space, we're competing with the big boys of the world, the Saros, and you bring in the Lavazza and all that. And
And looking, and you mentioned the company dates back to 1917. I mean, it was obviously a family-owned business. You want to take us maybe more on the history and how that got started?
Sure. So we only took over the business on the 1st of December 2017, and up until that point, it had been passed down the Richardson family, generation after generation. And it actually, unknown to many people, the business actually started in Johannesburg around the mines. And there was a bit of a revolt or something. Something happened at the mines, and it moved down to Durban in about 1923 or something like that. And then it's called Colombo Tea Company. So I think they focused on tea mainly, but grew into a coffee company over time. And as I say, passed down the Richardson family. The last Richardson moved to the UK sometime last year, and so the business was put up for sale. And we kind of, having been involved in the coffee industry and working closely with a lot of good coffee guys, they identify with Colombo, and I mean, one of the guys that we bring into the business, when it was up for sale, said to me, "You got to buy it. It's if you can." And so we did. It's synonymous with coffee in Durban, and so we kind of just want to carry on the legacy, grow it from strength to strength. It's exactly what I was looking for in terms of getting into the coffee industry. A nice established business. And I'm sure we'll cover more on the business as we go through the call, but that's it in a nutshell.
Do you want to maybe just kick off and tell us more about what it's like to manage the company and the staff, and some of the learnings you've had with that?
Yeah, so the staff are obviously probably the most important thing of this kind of business, especially in the cafe. If you've got horrible people working behind the counter, people are not going to come back. So. Yeah. We have
so it's not just about the coffee; it's about the people.
Yes, it's not just about the coffee, and we've seen that I travel all over South Africa, and I drink coffee at a lot of places, and I won't mention names, but I can tell you some very good coffee shops where the staff are horrible, wow. And like you have to, and it's not just me. You just have to go into Google and read the reviews, and it's interesting. But we're getting off track, so
no, this is good. We like off track. I mean,
100%.
That's actually a very good thing you mentioned. I mean, it's something I often do. Whenever I'm in a new city or town, I use Google Voice. I'll say, "Okay, Google, give me some coffee shops around me," and then it'll list a whole bunch of coffie shops.
Well, we'll get on well.
Yeah.
Because I've got Google smart speakers all over my house.
Oh goodness. And one of the first things that comes up is it goes according to the rating, and I think that's a lot of business owners don't realize or recognize that your customers have got first-hand knowledge and input into the business, and if you don't track or monitor that, they will dictate, where the customers come to you.
And you're always going to get a negative review, but the problem is, if you read reviews well, you've got to look between the 4 and 2 stars, and if you're consistently getting 2 stars, you've got a serious problem.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I don't think, I actually had a conversation with our guys yesterday, because Eat Out contacted us to update our listening. I said, guys, we actually have to identify all these, the TripAdvisors, the Eat Outs. There's a great new startup in Durban called Upvotes. Okay. Amazingly started in Durban that we're partnering with to do some cool things with, but it's a similar sort of rating places, but it's got a nice little twist, and we've got to make sure that we're visible on these platforms, that if we start getting negative feedback on these platforms, that we act quickly, and because as you say, you get a long history of Google, this is a terrible place and people aren't going to come here. Doesn't matter how good the coffee is.
And your personal experience about managing staff, obviously this is a new dynamic or a new field for you to be in. Is there anything that you've learned,
Yeah, I've obviously worked with a lot of people in the corporate environment, so I've got a bit of a feel for it, and it's an interesting contrast. And I asked one of the guys, because I said, historically, how have you hired here before we came on this call? Because I told him we were having this call. And he said, we hire for personality.
Wow.
Because we can teach them everything about coffee. I'm learning about coffee, and you can learn everything. There's books, there's this process. It's actually, coffee is very scientific. You can follow a step-by-step process. But let's call a spade a spade. If you're a dick, doesn't matter how good the coffee is, no one wants to come chat to you. And we have got some really cool people, and really cool people I've met and been able to form relationships with, and all different people. The different cultural backgrounds. Mandy, our packer, is teaching me how to speak Zulu. So every day we have a little bit of a jam. Wesley's a trail runner with a beard. So everyone thinks he's a hipster. It's his worst thing in the world.
Oh my goodness.
Chad's, our other assistant manager. We've got all these diverse personalities, next time you're in Durban, you obviously must come and come chat to the guys. Because obviously they're big high five users, and you'll be amazed at the different personalities there, and it works. Chantal is the one for. I've got her on the boys' case in terms of details and stuff, because she's helping sort out our inventory, and she's one of the cafe assistant managers. But we found out that she's actually quite good at getting the inventory on the wholesale side working. So we've got it pulled in there as well. So yeah, it's a very.
What you're actually saying is it's actually not about the skills. Like anyone
Yeah.
can learn skills. It's about.
Yeah.
Are we getting along with the people? Do they have a great personality?
And I mean, I did watch your prior call, and I think you used your prior podcast. You used the Google thing. It was, do we want to go have dinner with? No, or do you want to introduce them to your parents or something like that? And if you don't want to, then is this person a good person? Because most people you'd be happy to take them to an event or whatever, or anyone that's semi-decent. Yeah. And if you can't answer those questions, then you've got a serious problem. And
oh yes, about the lack test.
Yes.
Would you hang out? Could you be stuck in the airport with someone for like 5 hours?
Yes.
And that's a very good. Yeah, that's.
Yes. So it's exactly that. If we find, I mean, I've been there 3 months, and I feel like I know these oaks. And I mean, look, let me not be naive. Maybe when I walk out the door, they're like, "How's it, oak?" But because we're the owners. But I feel like like totally engaged with all of them. I know bits about them. It's comes down to a lot of the type of people they are. They're not. A lot of them have learnt know nothing about coffee when they come, and they've learnt. I mean, we've got a guy, Steve, at the moment, knew nothing about roasting coffee, but Chad saw something in him and said, "Well, let's teach this guy how to roast coffee," and he's learning how to roast coffee now. So it's actually very different to the corporate world. Look. Let's not be naive. It's not all roses, and I'm sure there will be issues down the track, and we'll have performance issues. And I mean, it's like any business. But I've loved the companies I worked for. But you always contrast. And there was always an attitude in the corporate, and if we don't do it, it must suck.
Wow.
If I haven't done this, or if someone else has written this, it is crap. And I've reflected on that a lot recently, and it's so true. Instead of being in awe of awesome stuff people have done, saying, that is awesome, I can add, and that's maybe where open source software is so cool. Is like, people, they collaborate.
Yeah.
And they say, it's not this ownership of I have done this, or that person stepping on my territory. And I think I've sort of seen that culture at Colombo. It's very much when we first rocked up there, we actually wanted to split the wholesale and the cafe businesses in terms of report. And eventually I said the other day to the guys, you know what, this is one business. We'll work where we need it. And you also learn new skills across the, working in the wholesale business. And it's not, cafes sitting at the front and wholesale in the back. And I think in the corporate world, sometimes it gets stuck. And there are some, corporates that do break that mold, but from what I've seen, they're stuck in their teams, or they, I report to so and so, or they have this illusion of a flat hierarchical structure, which is not really true.
I see what you mean, like corporates, generally speaking, okay, they're mostly in silos, and everyone is in this hierarchical mission to get to the top, and it always has to be accredited to them. Whereas what you found in running a small coffee shop business is that it's fairly flat, and most people are helping each other to improve and get better together. Is that right?
No, I think that's very much, and even looking at the incentives, because we give the guys, we do give them financial incentives, but they're all team-based. The only individual one is the high five incentive that, obviously we use high five, which we've just instituted just to recognize excellence. I mean, wow. I think the team stuff is great, but every once in a while, a guy needs an individual pat on the back, and that he's done something cool. So all our stuff is team based. So one person brings the team down, and guys, they don't let it slide. I mean, and there's even been instances where the managers who also get the incentive have decided that there's been balls dropped. They don't deserve the incentive. Not coming from, I'm not even involved in the decision of whether they get their incentives or not. It's the general manager and the management team of the and this, it's all or nothing. Not some people get, but we've formalized it a bit as we've taken. We've designed a scorecard, and so the guys get a little bit more transparency in how it's awarded and all that. So it's quite cool. But we've kept it all team based. We do team retail sales because even though the assistant managers tend to do the retail sales, the other guys are covering for them at the coffee bar. So it's like a team effort. So I'm actually very keen to take you to meet the guys.
I'd love to. Is there anything you've learned that you would have changed, within the short time?
I mean, business wise, I'll tell anyone, and I mean, it's as obvious as anything. Take a cash business over a credit business, because our wholesale business is credit. And I've got to see both, and not on a people point, just from business point of view. On the cafe side, obviously it's cash, which is great. But on the wholesale side, it's not a bad business. It's easier to manage the cash business. That's the one key learning. And managing money, looking at businesses for the last 6 years, which was 8 years ago. But anyway, before I started doing all of this, you always thought, I know about businesses. I went to university. I did CFA. I know all this stuff. But until you actually do it and you got to pay the bills and you got to do that, it's not real.
Nothing beats experience.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And there's always an old saying in the asset management industry, don't hire these oaks that have done all these MBAs or all that. Hire the oaks that have run a business. And I can't fault. I mean, maybe you need a mix of them, but I can't fault that sort of logic because it's hard work running a business. It was far easier sitting in my desk every day than it is now. This is not the easy. It's the fun option, but it's not the easy option. And in terms of people, I mean, I've learned to work with people that I've never worked with before, because obviously in a corporate environment, guys tend to have university degrees, come from different walks of life. I mean, we've got one guy, his nickname's Ankles, because he doesn't wear pants that go past his ankles or something, stuff that you'd never get in the corporate world. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah.
That's and that kind of you can't buy that kind of experience. It's something you've just got to, I guess, buy into and just pay the price. So, and then tell me, what is your you mentioned, I read your profile as well. You published a book.
Yeah. So that was, look, I'm a failed author.
Okay.
I didn't sell very many. But it was more of a self-development exercise. I was one of those guys growing up that said, I'm going to write a book one day. Okay. And, people probably said, oh, whatever, you're going to do it. And I actually got to the point that I've said this a couple of times. I actually haven't done it. So when I left the corporate world, I said, I'm going to write a book. And I researched on how you can write a book. And funny enough, the hardest part of writing a book is actually writing the book, not the creating books and getting it published. And there's a company called CreateSpace that's owned by Amazon. That the easiest thing is creating the actual final product. And that's why I say the hardest part is actually sitting in front of your computer and writing down the words that go into the book. Wow. But there's no excuse in terms of getting it published. Self-publishing is the easiest thing in the world.
Just do it.
Just do it. And it was I want to write another one now where I sort of think my thinking's matured. My original book was about dividend investing, which is what I used to do. I'm still a big believer in it, but there's things such as crypto assets, there's tech businesses. I mean, if you look at the Amazons, Facebooks, Googles, and even Microsoft, they control all the world's data. Yeah. That's worth something. And, even though Facebook's getting killed at the moment for what they have or have not done. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to understand that. And I think there's a definite, for people in their 30s and late 20s, there's this whole different world that we need to make sense of when it comes to investing and building wealth. And that's something I'd like to cover in sort of an update. And maybe I'll be a bit more successful. But it was a hell of a great self-development exercise. And I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And
how long did it take you from start to finish?
It probably took me about 6 months.
That's not bad.
Look, probably from when I first opened up a word processor, I did that years and years ago, and I wrote a page.
Okay, wow.
It just sat there for years, and then I eventually just gave it gave it a good go. And I got it edited and all that. I paid someone to do it. And so you got to do that sort of stuff properly. And I read books on how to write, and I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the best writer in the world, but I know a little bit more about writing than the average person, because I learned along the way. And whether my style's great for people or not, I write very short sentences.
So for you, it was more of a self-development tool than actually just getting a book out. It's just to prove something to yourself. It's just brilliant, I think. Well, listen, we're gonna wrap up with a few final questions. So, any other tips or recommendations for people hiring in this type of sector?
As I mentioned earlier, hire for personality, and let's bring it back to coffee. If you can't sit down and have a cup of coffee with this person, then you shouldn't hire them. And I think that goes for any industry. Now, having said that, I don't believe that you mustn't hire someone that's diverse or like has diverse views, or you got to have diversity.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
you can't.
And if I can use a flippant word again, being a dick is universal. So it doesn't matter what sort of where you're from or whatever. If you're not a good person, then it doesn't matter what you believe. We need people that love people, and I mean the old Amazon customer obsession. I mean, always tell the guys we've got to be obsessed about our customers. They're there to have a good experience. I mean, we hire for personality. The rest we can teach.
Brilliant. And then, how do you spend your day on average?
It's very unstructured. I mean, for someone, traditionally, I actually do like structure, even though I've taken this very unstructured lifestyle. I mean, I spend normally the first 4 hours of the day working on consulting gigs. I do pop into Colombo usually daily, if not 3 or 4 times a week, just to chat to the guys. My business partner is there daily, so he's the operational guy. But I read a lot. I mean, I'm reading for consulting, new ways of doing things in the tech business I do. I'm reading up on coffee. I love technology. My next thing to look at is technology and coffee, because I think that's a massive opportunity, and especially because we can do things at fairly low price points in South Africa.
I was going to ask you, what's your recent favorite reading material?
Well, I've just read a book that I think everyone should read. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. I don't know if
I've seen that on the shelves. Yeah. And is it good?
Yeah, it's very good. Look, it is a bit self-helpy, but it's like a good punch in the face that everyone needs. I think once in a while. Otherwise, I read anything. I love novels. My favorite book is To Kill a Mockingbird. I think it's the greatest book ever written. I once read like 48 books in a year because I'm a bookworm. I don't watch TV unless my wife's watching something. Yes. But with a young child now, I don't get to read as much. I'll read anything.
Myself, you got to almost like fight for the time, so it's a bit hard. And I mean, thanks for your time today. I mean, the biggest thing is it seems like you can add quite a bit of help to other people out there. I mean, what's the best way for people to get hold of you?
My email, I'll give you my Colombo email. It's Geoff with a Geoff @colombo.co.za. And then I'm on Twitter as well. You can just search for me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all social platforms just about. So if anyone wants to get in touch, I'm more than happy to have a chat. And if you're in Durban, come have a coffee.
Cool. Okay, well, thanks, Geoff. Thanks a lot for your time. And give us a last bit of a high five.